This is Paint Life TV. I'm Chris, the Idaho Painter. In this video, I'm going to go over my sanding system that I do when I sand and prep cabinets to paint them. So if you want to know what I use abrasive-wise and sanding-wise, my whole system, stay tuned. Don't leave now. All right, so I'm here doing a cabinet makeover today, and actually this is a multiple day project, and we're making over a vanity and making over a bathroom, and I'm doing, applying some aqua coat, doing some grain filler on this oak vanity, and it was a $25 vanity. We're gonna make this thing look like a $500 vanity when we're done. And so we're doing the aqua coat, and I'm sanding in between coats on the aqua coat. Then I'm gonna be painting it with our product from Renner 851. And we're gonna do some tests spraying it with an airless sprayer and spraying it with an HVLP. But I've got my sanding system right here, and I'm gonna talk about how I go about sanding aqua coat, the abrasives I use, and the sander I use, and even the vacuum I use. So I got an Ekasand vacuum right here, the Series 2 vacuum setup. It's a HEPA-Vac. And that's how I do a dustless sanding. And I've got my 3x4 sander. This is what I use on all my cabinets right here. 3x4 hook and loop or flocked style sander right here that is hooked up to my sanding system, my vacuum right here. And it makes for a clean job site. And if you're doing any sanding and you don't have it hooked up to a vacuum, you're just gonna have dust everywhere. It's eventually gonna contaminate your coating. So you do wanna have some type of vacuum hooked up. So what I really like about this system is the sander's hooked to the vacuum, and the vacuum turns itself off when I'm not sanding. You'll see I'm gonna hit the sanding paddle to turn it on. When it's not being used, it turns itself off, which is really, really nice. This is a really high-end system. 3x4 sander right here makes it really convenient for doing cabinets and doors. I do have a 5-inch and I have a 6-inch round, but I would say 90% of the work I do is with this 3x4, and you really don't need those larger round style. You can use them on like big, large side panels, on refrigerator side panels, stuff like that. I use them on decks and things of the sort, but when I'm doing just cabinets, face frames, the cabinet doors, even the side panels on the refrigerators, I'm not gonna bust out a bigger sander. I'm gonna use a 3x4. And this is the Ekasand right here, and it's absolutely amazing sander. Low vibration. It's a variable speed sander, so you turn it on, and I can run it, I believe, from 4,000 to 9,000 RPM. I think the 5-inch and 6-inch run from 4,000 to 10,000. I'll have to go back and check the specs, but I'm pretty sure that's what they're set at. You can see I can turn it on, turn it off, click of a button. So I don't know if you've heard, but I was actually adjusting the speeds on it. So it's got a plus and a minus on it. Very simple to adjust your speeds. And there's gonna be some certain situations, certain scenarios where you can lower your speed or increase your speed. I'm typically, when it comes to working on cabinets, always run it at high speed. And I'm gonna show you and demonstrate you how this thing works and how versatile it is. Now, when it comes to sanding with a sander, a power sander, you're gonna be sanding like 3 to 4 times faster than you would be if you're doing it by hand. It makes sitting here trying to sand profiles by hand so much faster, so much easier, and dust-free when you've got a power sander like this, and a commercial style power sander of this magnitude. Now, when you look at the price of it on its face, it's fairly expensive, but a couple cabinet jobs that it's going to pay for itself. So you definitely want to get something like this, similar to this, if you're doing a lot of cabinets. Now, the hook and loop system on here, you can put pads on here quickly and easily, change from pads, different style pads. You can offset your pads. I'm going to show you what offsetting your pad does in different situations. And so the hook and loop system works really, really good. I'm going to go over some of the size pads that I use when I'm sanding cabinets. I've got from just film right here, thin film, all the way up to 1/2 inch. I do have 5 mil and 10 mil sitting here, and there's different scenarios that you can use that. When I'm doing cabinets, I'm typically using, I just stick with film, and 1/2 inch is what probably 90% of my work does. I do have in my trailer other different sizes. I have the 5 mil and the 10 mil for different scenarios, and we'll talk about those scenarios. But I'm doing aqua coat right now, applying aqua coat, and I'm trying to eliminate all the grain. And in order to eliminate the grain, you have to have a very, very flat surface. And so I'm gonna be using Film Tech on all the flat surfaces. And then I'm gonna use a 1/2 inch sponge for anything profiled. And you're gonna see how doing profiled rounded edges, beveled edges, contoured edges is absolutely easy, fast, and efficient with this type of system. The pads come with holes in them. It also comes non-holes. They have vacuum sanders where you can hook up the vacuum. They also have non-vacuum sanders if you're not hooking it up to a vacuum. So you can get holes, non-holes. When I'm outside working on a deck, something like that, I typically don't use a sanding, a vacuum and stuff, because they just blow the deck off and dust off. I'm typically using non-hold pads, and so non-vacuum hold pads. So I'm going to show you, let's get on, I'm going to show you a demonstration of how this 1/2 inch works on this door and what makes it so effective. I'm going to show you right here, I've got a door. This is a recessed panel door. It's got a floating panel. And you can see I can take this pad, just press down on it lightly, and it contours to that edge. Now I can sit there and sand these contoured edges. I can sand these beveled edges, rounded edges, very simply and easily with this system. I'm going to turn on the sanders. I can't talk when the sander's on, but I'm going to show you what it looks like. Now I can offset this pad. I can work just like this in this routed edge, this recessed panel, just like this. So there was a quick demonstration of sanding with my Ekasand 3x4 sander, and I switched to various styles of paper and sponges when I was doing that. And I'm going to talk about, the advantages of some of their products here, why I use some of these products from Oneida. So Oneida is the company that manufactures all these products that have these various names to them. All right, so I'm going to be talking about now the Ekasand line of products I use, and also Film Tech, and even the Uni sponges that I use right here. And these are all the abrasives that I use from from Unita, and their abrasives, I really like their abrasives because they're extremely durable abrasives and they last up to 30 times longer than conventional abrasives. And I'll start off with the non-sponge abrasive I use, and that's Film Tech. And Film Tech right here, this is a film, and basically in simple terms, it's plastic. So our abrasive is actually put onto a plastic film, and it's held on with a resin on there. And this film is extremely more durable than paper. Paper has a tendency to rip, tear, wear out significantly faster than film. Film, you can't rip or tear film because it's a plastic, so it's very durable. It's not going to tear on your surface especially when you're sanding on profiled edges and stuff like this that got sharp edges and stuff. Paper will have a tendency to cut and tear. Film Tech typically can, in the past, paper was a lot cheaper than film was. Now film is about as inexpensive as paper is too. So there's not a lot of cost savings if you're going and buying paper. So Film Tech, these are Film Tech 3x4 pads that I use on my sander. The next thing I use the most often is a 1/2-inch sponge. And this is an open cell sponge right here. And the abrasives on here are aluminum oxide abrasives that are on all the abrasives that we have here. The sponge, it's a very soft sponge and it contours to beveled edges, rounded edges, and contoured edges and stuff like that. And it's really great for working on these cabinet doors. And a lot of the cabinet doors, most of them have some type of panel system on them. So I'm using that 1/2-inch sponge quite often on all rounded corners, beveled corners and edges. I do not use them on anything flat, no flat surfaces, and I'll discuss why I don't use them on flat surfaces here now. All right, so on the contoured surfaces, rounded edges, anything, I'm using a 1/2-inch sponge. On a flat surface, especially when I'm trying to eliminate grain, like on these oak panels and stuff. If you use a sponge, what's going to happen is your abrasive, the grit or the sand, whatever you want to call it, the aluminum oxide, is going to recede up into the sponge. It's going to contour to your grain, and you're not going to get a flat, smooth surface. And in effect, you're not going to be eliminating the grain. What we're trying to do is get this extremely flat. So anytime I sand on flat surfaces, I'm going to be sanding with Film Tech. Now you can sand with a 5mm sponge on flat surfaces. Unita does have videos, and they do recommend and say that you can use a 5mm on flat surfaces, and that's very effective. I like to just stick with Film Tech because I want my surfaces extremely flat, especially if there's any type of grain. If you're on a non-grainy wood like birch or maple or something like that, these 5mm pads, would be great. Now I'll get on to, there's 10mm pads, and I did flip over on this door right here on the back side of the door. I flipped over to a 10mm pad when I was doing this back panel, and this kind of resembles a shaker style door. And on the shaker style door, when I had this paper, or I had the film on here, I was sanding with the film, I hit my actual sander, hit the edge, vibrated, and you could damage your sander or damage the edge. And I'll show you, and you will hear what it sounds like here when I do this. So now I just switched over to a 10mm sponge, and here's the advantage of a 10mm sponge. And one of the reasons why Unita created it is for shaker style doors, and they're very common doors, and a shaker style is typically a little bit higher than that. But what's going to be happening is your sponge, you can see the blue is actually going to be hitting this edge and not the yellow portion of your sander. You're not going to get the bounce and kickback, that vibration. You're not going to damage your sander. So you can see what it looks like here. So that's an advantage of a 10 millimeter sponge, and it's why you might want to have a 10 millimeter sponge, in your arsenal of abrasives. Now you can't carry every abrasive in every situation. If you're not doing shaker style doors, you can see this door, this recess panel is not, this is just the back of the door. A 5 millimeter sponge actually has the same effect on the back side of this door right here. When it comes to sanding cabinets, I will talk about what grits I use, but I'll get on to a few of the other sponges. We have uni sponges right here, and these are sponges when you gotta work on getting in tight spaces and stuff, or you gotta do any just hand sanding in. Every now and then you're gonna have to just hit something by hand. You can just use these sponges to hit stuff by hand. I get down in these corners. So I do always have a certain amount of hand sponges available to do my final hit with my door. You can see we've got all the grain pretty much eliminated in there. I do have an inspection light right here. When I'm sanding, I typically always have that inspection light on, but due to the lighting when it comes to the camera, it messes up our lighting. I will turn it on so you can see what it looks like here in a minute, but if you're gonna have perfect looking cabinets with no defects, nicks, dings, or anything in it, you need to be running an inspection light at all times when you're inspecting, painting, and sanding your cabinets. So just want to talk about my Film Tech abrasives too, because I use the Film Tech a lot, but it's probably one of the most common abrasives I use in the Film Tech. Once again, I said it's a plastic abrasive. It's a steric abrasive too, so it has a resin on there, and then it's steric. And what steration is, it has a lubricant on there that helps stop loading of your sandpaper. So loading, if your sandpaper starts to fill up with what you're sanding, it starts to what we call load. And if you're running it on a machine, it gets loaded up. It's going to add to heat. The heat of the abrasive starts to get hot. The machine will start to get hot. The machine can overheat and then it could shut down. But as your abrasive gets hot, gets loaded, it's going to start to, and when you're dealing with latex coatings, some latex coatings, it will cause them to ball up and gel up and get really soft, and it just makes a big mess. So steration helps lubricate the sandpaper. It helps get away the dust from the sandpaper, moves it away, and helps keep it running cooler. All right, another little tool I want to show you and I keep handy is what we call an interface pad. And if you only have Film Tech available, or you only want to use Film Tech, you can take Film Tech and turn that into basically a sponge, or like a 1/2 inch sponge sanding pad. And now I've got myself a 1/2 inch sanding pad by using a 1/2 inch interface pad. And now I can do the same thing with Film Tech and get it to contour to certain edges. Now the interface pad, because it has a hook and loop, or what we call flocking also on both sides of it, it does make it stiffer than the actual 1/2 inch pad itself. That's just not an interface pad. So this is a lot softer, will contour more, but this is a versatile tool. They do have what we call pad savers, and you can put a pad saver in between this and your Film Tech, which you typically always want to run a pad saver. It will help keep heat down. It'll also help stop swirling too by keeping a pad saver under there. And if you got employees not paying attention, burning through your paper or wearing through it, you could end up messing up your hook and loop on your pad right here, and then you're gonna have to replace it. A pad saver is just gonna increase the life of that pad. I don't have it on here right now because I forgot it at another job site. So it's good to have multiple of those, but I'm very, very careful when using my sander that I'm not wearing through on past my pad. But Film Tech being a plastic, it's really difficult. If you're using paper, it's gonna wear through the paper a lot faster, and that's where you could damage your hook and loop. Now I wanna talk about, kind of went over all this stuff. I want to talk about what abrasives I carry, because there's a whole line, or what grits I carry, because there's just a wide array of grits to carry when it comes to cabinet painting. but I don't have very many. I typically use 220, 320, and then like a 450. And so these are rated, my Film Tech, it says 320, it says 220. I keep 320, 220 for cabinets. When it comes to the Ekasand, the Ekasand's rated very fine. It also has fine, and then I've got super fine. And the super fine, there's a super fine one right here. Super fine's around a 450. The fine is around a 220, and a very fine is around a 320. And they do have a chart. I have a chart on our website that will give you the breakdown of where they actually fall in there. When it comes to sanding, you know, the aqua coat and using and sanding grain fillers and stuff, I sand my grain filler with a 320. And then I'm using a 320 in Film Tech, and I'm also using a very fine in the Ekasand Plus right here. And the Ekasand Plus, the 10 mil and the 5 mil, these are closed cell sponges, so they're a lot denser than the 1/2 inch, which is an open cell. It's a lot softer. And so the 5 mil, that's why the 5 mil, because it's closed cell and it's only 5 mils thick, you can actually use it to sand flat surfaces. So there you have it. This is pretty much my whole setup. This is what I use in the variations of what I use when it comes to painting cabinets, doing grain fillers on cabinets and stuff, and the abrasives I use, and the sander and the vacuum system I use. I'm going to do another video that specifically goes over this vacuum and tool system setup that I have and why I use that. But I use Ekasand. It's the best sander I've ever used, best abrasives I've ever used, extremely durable products, professional quality products that last up to 30 times longer than, you know, other sanding products out there on the market. Simply amazing tools.